Okay, so my name is Brent Buckley. This is Jon Glick. This is Haataja. And we kind of started this little video thing that we're doing to put out there for some folks who might have some questions about, what we do at Northern Indiana Abolitionists and how we do it. Answer some questions. Last week we talked about the pro-life regulatory laws, how they're really iniquitous decrees, and Joel touched on that. And how as Christians we shouldn't support iniquitous decrees. In fact, biblically speaking, God pronounces woes over those who create iniquitous decrees, which would be pro-life regulatory bills. So we touched on that. And just to go a little further back, abolitionists, we kind of jumped right in at the legislative side of things, because as abolitionists we kind of have two ways of dealing with abortion. The first way is immediate. Of course, abolitionists are immediatists as a whole, but in the immediate sense of actions we take, abolitionists in the immediate sense, we go to abortion mills, we preach the gospel, we try to save as many babies as we can in front of clinics. And in a long-term approach we also take is legislatively, which is kind of where we started. So abolitionists legislatively, we try to, this is what I'm looking for. We just try to support and put forth God-honoring legislation. In fact, in Indiana, we've had 5 bills of abolition that get killed every year by pro-life legislators. Why they're calling themselves pro-life and killing bills that are actually pro-life is bewildering. I mean, we have our reasons why we think they might do that. But and also there's plenty of scripture that backs up what we do as Christians. I mean, as Christians, we should be involved in bringing abortion to an end. I just talked about the iniquitous law. Where's that at? Isaiah 10? I think it's in Isaiah 10. And really there's Bible references all over Scripture that just really commands Christians to uphold justice and be a salt and light. Right now my daughter's laughing. My daughter's filming me. She's laughing, so I'm concerned. I might have something in my beard.
No, my stomach growled.
Oh, okay. So then also, scripturally speaking, this is what happened last week. If you remember, we had this is going to be a little longer. Sorry, I probably already rambled too long. But we had a 3-minute segment. Joel unpacked some things about the pro-life regulatory bills and how really they're ungodly. And then I looked at John. I said, John, do you have anything you want to add? And he just said, nope. And then we turned off the cameras, everybody, and we walked over there, and John had all sorts of things to say. He's like, oh, look at the scripture out of there. So in fairness, we kind of grabbed John at the last minute, and because we're like, oh, he should be in on this. So he didn't really know what was happening, so he didn't have time to prepare. So this time, he's going to talk about what he shared with us last week off camera, and I think it's Proverbs 3, you said?
Yeah.
So he'll dig a little bit into that. And this is just scripture that really supports what we've already talked about, the pro-life regulatory laws being ungodly. So I'll let John take it from here.
Yeah, so recently my family was listening to Proverbs chapter 3 on the way to church as we were driving. And when we got to verses 27 through 29, I just thought how applicable these really were to what we're seeking to do as abolitionists, as we're looking at pro-life legislation that regulates instead of actually criminalizing abortion and murder. So I'd like to just kind of walk through these verses and see how they apply to the issue of abortion. And first, in verse 27 says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it." As we talk to our legislators, we need to remind them that it is in their power and their authority to criminalize and abolish abortion. So our state and federal constitutions are enumerated powers documents, and that means that the powers of the government are specifically listed. They're enumerated in our constitutions. This is true both in the Indiana Constitution, this is true in the federal Constitution, this is true in all the state constitutions, really. And only those powers that are specifically granted to each body of government may be exercised by that body of government. So the courts, for instance, have been granted no authority to make laws. That power is entirely in the hands of the legislature, nor the courts the final arbiter of constitutionality. If they were, then as Thomas Jefferson said about that, it would be a very dangerous doctrine indeed, and one which would place us under the despotism of an oligarchy. Our 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution clearly states the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. And this includes the police power of the state to protect its citizens against murder, regardless of their age, their location, or their developmental progress. And this is why we say, abortion, we need to have equal protection for the preborn. And the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution says, in part, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And since the Constitution, not the Supreme Court, is the supreme civil law of the land, we must hold our elected representatives accountable to obey the Constitution and not the court whenever the court issues a ruling contrary to the Constitution. It is also important to realize that even if we do not have constitutional protections, which thankfully we do, but even if we did not, that we would be obligated in this case to defy the Supreme Court to establish equal justice to protect the unborn. Proverbs 17:15 says, "He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous are both alike an abomination to the Lord." So as we look at this verse in Proverbs 3, we have it in our power, our legislature has it in their power to do good to the preborn. And we are commanded to not withhold that good from them when it is in our power to do it. And then the next verse, verse 28, says, "Do not say to your neighbor, 'Go and come again. Tomorrow I will give it,' when you have it with you." But as we talked about last week, this is exactly what pro-life regulatory bills do. They say, "Go and come again. Tomorrow I will give it." Sometime in the future, sometime when the court rules our way, or when the society changes its opinion, or whatever it is, it's always, "Go, come again. Tomorrow I will give it." Although we have the means and the obligation, the legal authority to end abortion immediately, incrementalism continues. Just go, come again, tomorrow. Third, verse 29 says, "Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you." And pro-life regulatory bills, in effect, do exactly that. They regulate who may be killed, or how they may be killed, who may kill them, all these things, like how wide the hallway has to be before you can murder your baby, or whether you have to come and see your doctor 3 days before you murder your baby, or whether you have to view an ultrasound before you murder your baby. And they, in essence, plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. So we are calling on our legislatures to recognize their authority and their obligations, to reject unjust humanistic methods, to enact laws which immediately and completely criminalize abortion for the protection of the preborn, for the love of our neighbors, as Jesus commanded. So there are so many places in Scripture that we can go to look at. This was just one that I heard, as like I said, we were driving to church, I was listening through Proverbs chapter 3, and I thought, that this is exactly where we are. This is what we need to be doing. We need to not withhold good from those to whom it is due, because it is in our power to do good for them.
Right on. Right on. Joe, did you want to add anything?
Nope.
Now, he will after, of course. That's going to be our running gag. But yeah, I totally agree with all of that. As John said, and as I said earlier, that pro-life regulatory laws are just that. They're regulating murder like healthcare. And we as Christians, we have the answer for genocide, and that is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we need to take that not only to the streets in front of the abortion clinics, but also to our legislators and demand that they uphold God's standard of truth, justice, and righteousness. And we have been lacking in that for so long. That's one of the reasons we have abortion so prevalent. We have genocide so prevalent in our time. right now. And make no mistake, abortion is the greatest evil we have here today. And John touched on a lot of good aspects, like he touched a lot on the constitutional aspects of why we should end abortion. And notice how he tied that in with scriptural references. And that's because our Constitution was founded with biblical principles and standards that we have forgotten. And again, we as Christians, we need to remind our culture not only that Christ reigns supreme, but that our Constitution is based off of that supremacy. So I just hope this blesses you guys, and we hope to continue to do this. We know we're not all that interesting. I think we've called it, what did we call it, Constitution, or no, Conversations with Abolitionists or something like that. We just put a cool little name to it. So be looking for more of these in the future. And if you have anything you'd like us to talk about, you can throw it in the comments, and we'll just keep doing it because we can. So thanks, everybody. God bless.